Welcome to the Mind for Success podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Lebbing, and I love seeing business professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs have massive success in their businesses. Are you ready to reach a higher level in your business? Are you looking to rise to the top and break through the barriers that are holding you back? If this is you, join us on the Mind for Success podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Mind for Success podcast. I am your host, Kimberly Lebbing, and this week we're going to be talking about how to identify and overcome hidden limitations in your business and your personal life so that you can become more of your authentic self, because we are more in alignment with who we truly are and what our core values are. Everything becomes easier. Our business becomes easier. Our relationships become easier. Literally everything. So I'm going to take you through some steps so that you can identify those and shift them. So first, I want to give you a little bit of a story of how I got started on this journey myself, because I think it might resonate with you. Back in, I think it was 2012 was the first time. I had been in business for a while, but it was the first time I had gone to any kind of a personal growth seminar. I was in the car by myself. Nobody else was going with me that I knew anyway. Of course, there were other people to seminar, but I was going by myself. And I remember feeling just a lot of anxiety, even on the drive there, because I knew I needed it really badly. I didn't know why, but I was just drawn to go. And it was a seminar about mindset, personal growth, and that sort of thing. And I remember sitting in there and just feeling almost singled out, even though I know I wasn't, but it felt like this guy was talking to me about how I was showing up energetically, the words I was using, the words that I had been programmed to use growing up, and all of these internal filters that had affected me and why I was not having the success in my business that I really, really wanted. Part of the reason why I went was I knew this was like where all the successful people were showing up. And I wanted it so badly. I was, willing to really just do anything and dive in to do what they were doing. When I showed up, I saw the difference because I saw how I was showing up. And I'm really grateful for, that beginning part, because I remember even asking a question, and the way that I answered it, it was a direct question, or maybe they were going around the room. And the way I answered it just revealed so much about where I was at that time. And energetically, I was just in a place of lack and scarcity and really low confidence, like all kinds of things going on. So it was very revealing to me. I cried all the way home. It was just such a wake up call for me. And it was upsetting, but I'm grateful for it, because if I wouldn't have gone, I would have never woken up, or maybe not as soon. And that was the beginning of my journey. So today I want to talk about, maybe you're not in that place where, you're that as bad as it was at that time, but we all show up in certain ways in our business and in our personal life where energetically we're repelling things away from us because of these internal filters. So I want to talk about that a little bit. So what it looks like today for a lot of the people that I see and work with is things just feel off. Like your business feels off, your relationships feel off, like you don't feel really aligned with how you're doing things, or you're working and working and working, and it's just not getting you the results
that you really were expecting from putting all that work in. And I've been in that place too, where I did, do all the things, checked all the checklist and crossed the T's and dotted the I's, and still, doing all the things they tell you to do and still not getting like the results that I wanted. And I now know that those were times when I was out of alignment. I was literally not seeing the internal filters that were blocking me from reaching my goals. So let me talk about the internal filters for a minute. So your internal filters, those are formed in the first 7 years of life. And they are compiled of the communication, the behaviors, how you're growing up, the beliefs, the whatever family or surroundings you grow up in. It's compiled of all of that. And out of those, I call them filters. Different people call them different things. But out of that is where your behaviors and your decisions and all of that come. Well, what happens? The thing that happens that we don't realize is these filters form before the age of 7. We grow up and we just kind of stuff it under the rug and think, oh, that little event that happened back when I was 6, that wasn't significant. It was no big deal. I'm way past that now. It's fine. It's fine. And then we get in our businesses and we're moving along and trying to do things. But what ends up happening is we have these behaviors and these decisions that almost are out of our control. And sort of they are, because our subconscious mind is running the program and it's running it out of these filters. So until we really kind of shift those filters, and ultimately when we do that, we shift the energy that we're showing up in, that's when things start to work really smoothly for us. So it could just make a huge world of difference in how we show up and the results that we get. So here's some examples of how this may show up if this is a problem for you. So you may feel disconnected from even like your inner knowing or inner wisdom. Like you just feel, like I said, off. You may be seeking external validation, approval from others. You may have a lack of faith in your own decision making. You're not confident in what you're doing, and you're second guessing some of your decisions. You may have some like scattered energy going on where you're jumping from one thing to the other and not real clear on what you want to focus on. You may have a fear of upsetting other people. And, that comes from a little bit of a people pleasing sort of energy, inner conflict, I want to do this, but this other thing is pulling me and I can't, like they're in conflict of each other. I know for women, or one of the things that I used to struggle with was I had this belief or filter that I couldn't be a good business owner, like run a successful business and have a solid family life. And that was a big one for me. So that conflict, some kind, maybe it's not that one, but some kind of internal conflict going on. And you may be getting triggered by external things, people, comments, things that are just happening around you. That's a good sign that you've got an internal filter that's asking to be shifted. And maybe you're longing for deeper, more, intimate kind of connections and relationships, because sometimes when we have all this stuff going on, we have pushed aside stuff, and then we don't really connect with people because we're keeping them a little bit at arm's length, because there's a fear there, or because there's something else going on. So there's all kinds of reasons why or how this might show up in your business. Okay, so now we're going to talk about shifting it. So the very first step in shifting, or I guess shifting these blocks, the very, very number one step is think about what's held you back the most. What is it? So have you, out of those things that I listed previously, what type of behavior or responses has been holding you back the most, and where is it showing up? Is it showing up in just one area? Is it showing up in several? Because my guess is if it's showing up in one area and it's a big problem, it's probably showing up in other areas too. So what I mean by that, like, let's say that getting acceptance from others is something from you, and you're saying yes to all these things, and then your schedule ends up being overwhelming because you're not saying yes to the things that really align with your goals and your soul's purpose. So you're feeling it makes you feel off when that happens. And so that could be a filter. And if that's showing up in your business, it could also be showing up in your personal life. And more than likely, it is showing up in different areas. So that's what you want to pay attention to is that if it is showing up in one area, is it showing up in other places? Because if it is, that's likely a big problem that's ready. Maybe if it's showing up and you're aware of it, it may be time to think about how could things be different? So one of the questions you can ask yourself is, how has it been a problem? Where else is it showing up? So go through that and really dig in. Okay. So number two, the second part of this is asking yourself, what is the source of this problem or this behavior or this filter? Like, where did it come from? And you may want to just think about what, going back to our filters are formed before the age of 7, just thinking about what was there, who were you around, what kind of examples or experiences did you have, and not doing it out of place of judgment or victim. I'm a victim, but just as an awareness of what's there. Because when you can identify the source, it really helps you understand. And it also helps you give a little grace to yourself as far as why, you may be doing this behavior over and over and over again and haven't been able yet to get past it. It really opens up your mind to things. And sometimes these things can be really tricky too. I'll give you an example. I had this client who was a weight loss coach, and she came to me because she wanted to expand her business. She was retiring from one, profession. She had been a teacher for years and years and years, and then wanted to get this weight loss coaching business up and going. And she was already in it. She had been in it a couple of years, but really wanted to bring it to the next level so that she could support her kid. She had a kid that was getting ready to go to college, another one, I think he was getting ready to graduate high school. So they were older kids getting ready to get into college years. And she needed to be able to not only support herself, but also put them in school. And she wanted to buy a new house, all these different things. So for her, the biggest thing that was her, I guess, subconscious filter that was hurting her the most or showing up the most in her business was she had lost all this weight. So she had lost 70, 80 pounds. I don't remember the exact number. And I don't talk about my client's name. So in that respect, that detail probably doesn't matter, but she had lost all this weight, and she had this pattern going on of self-sabotaging. And then she would feel guilty about it. So she lost all the weight, but then she would, like, I don't know, have what she kept calling bad food. And then she would put a little bit back on, and then she would feel incongruent with her coaching business. And so she was just having a really hard time. I mean, I'm sure you can see or hear how that would affect her business. So we started digging into where did this pattern start? And what we ended up finding out was, for her, she had connected food and fun together. And she did this because when she was growing up, anytime she got good grades, anytime like anything good would happen, and it's really common for this to happen, right? Her mom and her aunt would take her out, and they would get like, it sounded almost like carnival food. Like they'd go and get ice cream or, funnel cakes or, something like that. And it was a fun, memorable time. It wasn't anything traumatic by any shape of any means. It was a good experience. However, she had formed this filter of food and fun. And whenever she ate that type of food with her new lifestyle of, being healthy and eating healthy foods, she'd have this tremendous amount of guilt that would show up. And then she would beat herself up for a few days if she ate anything. Anyway, it was just a really vicious cycle, and it was affecting her business. So that's an example of how a filter might show up that maybe wasn't even a bad experience. It was just an experience. So there was no judgment, it was all good intentions with her mom and her aunt. There was no judgment or, anything like that. And once she was able to shift that filter and that energy, because she was really coming from an energy of guilt. She was coming from an energy of shame. Like that, those were the predominant energies that she was in. And it really created a horrible cycle for her. And once she was able to shift that, everything came, like it changed. Like literally she could go and eat the food that she wanted to eat. If she was going on vacation or something and she was really wanting to just hang out and go have fun, she would go do it, but she wouldn't have all that guilt and that whole cycle attached to it. She'd do it and then she'd get right back on track, the next day or when she got back from traveling or whatever. It was not a big deal. She didn't gain the weight back. In fact, she's doing amazing now. So that's an example of how some of that can show up. And when you can shift that energy, it really can change everything. Okay. So that was a lot. Now I've got to give you this third step. So the third step is to shift the limitation, shift whatever limiting belief or filter, shift that limitation or filter. And we do that by, you've identified the problem, you've figured out where it came from, and now shifting it means you just really dig in and ask yourself, what can you learn that's positive? What can you learn from this experience that's really positive? And asking yourself questions like, what would be possible? What would be possible if I could overcome this? What would be possible for me in my business, in my relationships, if this no longer existed? What would be there for me? What would be available for me? And this is huge. So really think about that. What would be available to you if whatever thing, whatever filter, whatever subconscious limitation that you had was no longer a problem for you? What would be different? Because when we can focus on that part rather than focusing on what, all the problems, that's when we can begin to shift it. I have a free resource for you called Unlocking Your Authentic Self. And we'll put it in the show notes, but you can find it at resources.kimberlylebbing.com. /unlock. So unlocking your authentic self. And this is the steps. It's 3 key steps to identify, overcome hidden limitations in your life and your business, and realize your highest potential. Because when you can do that, like I said in the very beginning, when you can do that and become more of you and shift, not get rid of, but shift those filters that you believed and shift them into a new type of energy where you show up differently. That's when your business becomes easier, your relationships become deeper, and you become more connected with people, and things just flow. So go download the resource, like and share this episode, and thank you so much for listening.
Are you ready to break through the barriers that are holding you back and reach a higher level in your business in just 4 hours? Be sure to click the link today and join other high-achieving professionals that have worked with Kimberly Lebbing to accelerate their success.